remember that in an outward sense, in the soul experience, if we want to focus on something, we focus on it as a second point. In our mind, if we want to focus on something, it's better if we focus from primary point, not focus on a secondary point, in this case, a painful compartment. Because the more we focus on the painful compartment, the more we feel the pain. If we back into mind and continue to detach, the pain diminishes so that we can still actually get into a place where we can experience what we're trying to understand. But we get into a place where we realize that all pain in this lifetime is one of the greatest distractions to us. I mean, how much of life experience out there is devoted toward trying to deal with the pain of humanity? Not just physical pain, but mental pain and also emotional pain, right? And yet, when it comes to like physical pain, you can use meds, right? But when it gets into the mental side of pain, like the intellectual fear of failure, is there a med for that? There isn't, is there? Or if you get into a heartache, now you get into a place where you realize there's nothing that any meds can do about that. But in the mind, the beauty of our mind is that it can detach from both of these painful experiences and get into a place where we can minimize it to an extent where we can understand why it is, and the minute that we let go of what it is that is painful for us, we are now free from it. But we have to ultimately completely detach from a compartment to allow it to turn on itself and to burn its own energy. But there's this space between how we learn to detach and the understanding of how we individually deal with pain in our life. It's up to each one of us. And of course, getting into mind and learning how to detach from something painful usually is going to have the understanding as to why we were continuing to loop through something that we didn't like, right? And once we realize we don't like it and it doesn't feel good, and it's like, why am I continuing to do this if it's hurting me? I just won't do it again. And then you can continue on your path. But this really is kind of an anatomy of detachment. The difference between being more in primary point or more in secondary point, and how much of that, if you're more in secondary point, you're going to feel more. If you're going to be being more in primary point, you're going to feel less of the pain you're trying to get away from. But remember that when you're trying to deal with the ego and the intellect, they see from the outside in, not from the inside out. The ego and the intellect don't really know what this means. Only when you get into mind can you understand what it's like to see and experience from the inside out. So whenever you get majorly triggered, relax inward, because that will start the process of detachment. The more you resist, the more you attach. So you have to get into a place where you're non-resistant, and then you just get into your own mind. And then once you can get detached enough from it, you can begin to question, okay, first and foremost, God, this happened a long time ago, and why am I still hurting? It's not happening right now. So then you begin to understand there's something else going on here. And then you recognize the fact that that pain has gotten into a compartment that is still affecting you today. When you completely detach from it, and then you recognize the fact that I no longer need to even feel this. Once you stop feeling the compartment, you'll be free from it. And then the compartment will turn on itself. When compartments have a lot of energy units in them, they can take some time to wear them down. But that's just where you learn to recognize how to detach from them and then just focus on what you need to do in your life. Because with detachment comes the freedom from compartments and then ultimately dissolving them so they simply aren't there. And that you can begin to really love in your life.